Hello and welcome to the final episode of the second season of Archaeobotany. For this episode, we'll cover Croatian Archaeobotany. To get a full view on this topic, we will cover 4 papers by Dr. Kelly Reid. One on the topic of the diet of those in the Neolithic cultures within Croatia during that era. Another on the plant ruminants found in the hearths of Neolithic Croatia. Still another on the overview of the history of the Neolithic research within Croatia. And a final paper that covers the changes that occurred during the Copper Age of Croatia. Within Neolithic Croatia, there's a group known as the Sopot culture. This culture dwelt within 3 settlements within eastern Croatia. Their names are Sopot, Slavka, and Ravnjans. This culture existed between 5200 BCE and 4000 BCE. The Sopot culture developed from either the remnants of the Zagrebu culture, or simply took their place after they fell. It is likely that the latter is true, due to the most likely origin point of the Sopot culture is located in the region of eastern Slovenia between Drava and Sava, as well as the Danube rivers. These settlements were often raised on natural elevations on the banks of rivers and streams. Both extant and extinct swampy floodplains were also used for housing. This culture likely also expanded into what is now known as Hungary and northern Bosnia. This culture was known to have a characteristic form of pottery. The pottery was black, biconical, with an S-profiled vessel shape. These ceramics were also generally undecorated, with only a small percentage of these fragments carrying any ornamentation. Various pits from these dig sites were excavated, and the plant material was analyzed. Based on the evidence gathered, the common crops grown during that era were barley, emmer, einkorn, modern-style wheat, and an intermediary between ancient and fully domesticated wheat called new type gloom wheat. Of these crops, the species emmer and einkorn are the most predominant. Pulses were also found, although in smaller numbers. There is an overall lower rate of preservation of pulse crops for unknown reason. Of the preserved material, lentils, grass pea, and bitter vetch were most common amongst the pulses. Amongst these 3, lentils was the most common. Small quantities of flax were also found in these dig sites. Since flax has a high amount of oil, preservation of this species is quite rare. However, the presence of the species indicates cultivation of flax. Small amounts of gathered wild species like Chinese lantern, Cornelian cherry, blackberry, Chenopodium album, and nettles have also been found. Most of the common species found in these dig sites are common also in Neolithic Albania, Bosnia, Northern Italian, Serbia, and Slovenian cultures. Around 6400 BCE, the primary crop species of Southwest Asia were moved to Europe, and from there it's postulated that these crops reached Croatia around 6000 BCE. These founder crops were einkorn, emmer, barley, pea, lentil, chickpea, bitter vetch, and flax. Various dig sites within Croatia, especially pits and daub impressions, were excavated, and the plant material was analyzed. The Neolithic Sarajevo settlements date between 6100 BCE and 5300 BCE, consisted primarily of einkorn, emmer, and barley from a grain perspective. During this time, emmer was the most common of the species. The Sopot settlements date between 5300 and 4000 BCE, and the dig sites of these settlements yielded primarily einkorn and emmers, with smaller numbers of barley samples. It's within these settlements that the first instances of 6-row barley in Croatia is found. The Hvar culture settlements date between 4800 BCE and 4000 BC, and these settlements primarily consisted of emmer samples, with additions of proso and foxtail millets. The aforementioned intermediary stage between emmer and breadwheat was also found within this dig site. As for pulse, the only specimens collected from the Sopot regions were lentil, bitter vetch, and grass pea. Pulses were only found within the Sopot regions within this paper. A general seems to be a gradual shift over time from a great many species of grain like einkorn, barley, emmer, and so on and so forth, to increased reliance on emmer. Since emmer is no longer grown, this trend would not continue forever. Within the history of the Neolithic, the primary crops that spread across the Old World were a few crop species such as einkorn, emmer, barley, pea, lentil, chickpea, bitter vetch, and flax. Within Croatia, the first farms likely appeared around 6000 BCE. This is broadly based on the evidence obtained from two Neolithic dig sites in mainland Croatia, Sopot and Tomasanti Palika, as well as 5 dig sites in coastal Croatia. All 7 dig sites provide remnants of the above crops to varying degrees. The archaeological evidence also suggests the diffusion of outside peoples from the Near East into Europe in ancient times, bringing these crops alongside them. This likely happened between 6000 and 4500 BCE. The first instances of semi-permanent settlements within cattle rearing began between 4800 and 4500 BCE, at least within Croatia. Again within Croatia, between 4500 BCE and 2400 BCE, larger settlements began appearing within the Balkan region. These were larger city-like settlements. During this exact same time, evidence of increased use of trade routes, the greater use of animals for draft, wool, and milking purposes were also appearing. It is at this point that more complex burials and more complex city fortifications began to appear within the archaeological record. This point also represents a switch to barley as a primary crop over einkorn and emmer. During the Bronze Age, which lasted between 2400 and 900 BCE, the appearance of social rankings found in Europe would come into being, and these would remain in play until the mid-20th century. This era also came with the appearance and importation of other crop species for production purposes. Such species include broomcorn millet, spelt, broad bean, safflower, and camilla. In Croatia, we specifically see the appearance of broomcorn millet and olives in dig sites, indicating that wild olives were found in that region. During the Iron Age, which lasted between 1000 to 100 BCE, further breeding and improvement of wheat and barley happened. This would lead to the formation of 6-row barley and spelt wheat. The first instances of grapes were also found within the dig sites of this era. During the Roman era, during the 1st to 5th century CE, the introduction of cucumbers, black mustard, carrot, radish, chicory, grape, olive, fig, walnut, and pine nuts to Croatia occurred. Specifically, domesticated grapes, not wild grapes. The Middle Ages lasted between the 7th to 16th century CE and saw the introduction of oats, peaches, and grapes to Croatia. Going back to the Copper Age, this era within Croatia saw a distinct shift in changes within settlement patterns, material culture, social traditions, and subsistence practices. During this era, based on the archaeological evidence, greater herd sizes in cattle and a greater reduction of the use of wild animals for meat began making an appearance within the archaeological record. Evidence of further use of secondary products such as milk, wool, and animal labor began to appear within this era. Such things are the advent of a very complex civilization. Indeed, this may be the beginning of Eastern European civilization as we know it. We also see the first instances of animal pens and palace economies dedicated to large-scale surplus production of crops. A larger amount of foxtail millet appears during this era as well, indicating greater use of this crop during this era. In the late Copper Age, increases in the uses of pulses such as grass pea, lentil pea, and oil plants like flax began appearing as well. This indicates that pulse production began to increase during this era. And that about covers everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you really enjoyed it and think you can donate, you can do so at Buy Me a Coffee, link in the description below. Thank you for watching.